Sometimes a kiss tells you something her words never will. And if you're an older man, there is one mistake you absolutely cannot afford to make: assuming that because she kisses you, you already understand what she feels. A woman can enjoy a kiss and still be emotionally uncertain. She can feel attracted and still be protecting herself. She can want closeness while quietly wondering whether she can trust you with her emotions. That is why the most important part of kissing her isn't the kiss itself. It's what happens before it, during it, and immediately afterward. Because when a woman feels genuinely safe and emotionally drawn to a man, her behavior often changes in tiny ways that most men completely miss. And here is where it gets interesting. The older you become, the less you should be trying to impress her with intensity, and the more you should understand the psychology of emotional safety, confidence, and mutual desire. So, what exactly should an older man notice when he kisses a woman? The answer may completely change the way you interpret her attraction. If you're an older man who has ever wondered whether a woman genuinely feels something for you, this matters. Maybe you've experienced a situation where the chemistry seemed obvious, the conversation felt effortless, and the moment finally arrived. You kissed her. And afterward, instead of feeling certain, you became more confused. Was she attracted? Was she simply caught up in the moment? Did she enjoy it as much as you did? Why did she become warmer afterward or suddenly more reserved? These questions become even more complicated as people get older because attraction is rarely just about physical chemistry. Experience changes the equation. An older woman may have already lived through relationships that taught her to protect herself. An older man may have experienced enough disappointment to become cautious about believing signals too quickly. And that creates an interesting psychological situation. Two people can genuinely like each other while simultaneously protecting themselves from getting hurt. That is why kissing should never be treated as a guaranteed declaration of love. It is information. It gives you clues. But the real skill is learning how to interpret those clues without turning one intimate moment into an entire fantasy about the future. There is another important distinction. A confident man does not ask, "How do I kiss her so she becomes attached to me?" He asks, "How do I create a moment where both of us can genuinely feel what is happening?" That difference is enormous. The first mindset is focused on control. The second is focused on connection, and women tend to notice that difference. When a man is desperately trying to produce a reaction, his behavior often becomes tense. He watches her face too closely. He searches for confirmation. He becomes impatient. He starts calculating every movement. And ironically, that anxiety can destroy the very natural connection he wants. But when a man is comfortable enough to let a moment develop naturally, something changes. He becomes more present. He notices her comfort. He respects her pace. He doesn't need to force certainty. And that emotional steadiness can be far more attractive than trying to perform some perfect technique. So, throughout this discussion, there are two things you need to watch carefully. First, the difference between physical participation and emotional engagement. Second, what happens after the kiss? Because sometimes the most revealing psychological signal isn't her reaction during the moment, it's the behavior that follows it. Think about that. If someone feels genuinely connected to you, why would their behavior after intimacy remain completely disconnected from the experience? This doesn't mean every woman will suddenly become affectionate, expressive, or romantic. People have different attachment styles. Some become warmer, some become quieter because they are processing emotion. Some joke because vulnerability makes them uncomfortable. Some need space before they understand what they feel. That is why mature dating requires observation instead of assumption. Attachment theory helps explain part of this. People with more secure attachment often tolerate closeness without immediately feeling threatened by it. People with anxious tendencies may seek reassurance after intimacy. People with avoidant tendencies may enjoy closeness and then create distance when the emotional intensity becomes uncomfortable. None of these patterns automatically mean someone loves you or doesn't love you. They simply remind you that human behavior is complicated, and this is especially important for older men. Your advantage isn't pretending to be 25. Your advantage is emotional maturity. You have the opportunity to approach attraction without desperation. You can slow down, you can listen, you can notice whether the connection is mutual, and most importantly, you can stop treating every romantic moment as a test you have to pass. Because the deeper truth about kissing is not about making a woman lose control. It's about discovering whether two people can comfortably move closer without either person abandoning their boundaries. Once you understand that, the entire experience becomes clearer. Most men are taught to think about kissing as a performance technique, confidence, timing, chemistry. But there is a psychological layer underneath all of that. A kiss communicates information. It can communicate comfort, curiosity, affection, desire, trust, or sometimes simply a willingness to explore a moment. That last distinction matters, because one of the biggest mistakes men make is turning one positive signal into a permanent conclusion. She kissed you, therefore she wants a relationship. Not necessarily. She kissed you, therefore she is deeply attracted. Maybe. She kissed you, therefore everything between you is now certain. Absolutely not. The brain hates uncertainty. Psychologists often describe this tendency through concepts such as cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias. When you desperately want a particular outcome, your mind naturally searches for evidence supporting it. If you want her to be deeply interested, you may notice the kiss and ignore the inconsistent behavior afterward. You remember how close she stood. You forget that she rarely initiates contact. You remember her smile. You overlook the fact that she repeatedly avoids making plans. Your emotions highlight the evidence they want, and that can create a fantasy that feels like certainty. Here's the healthier approach. Look for patterns, not isolated moments. Imagine an older man named Daniel. He meets a woman through mutual friends. They talk for several weeks. She laughs easily around him. She remembers small details about his life. She initiates conversations. Eventually, they share a kiss. Daniel feels an enormous rush of excitement. The next morning, he starts analyzing everything. How long did she kiss him? Did she lean closer? Why did she smile afterward? Why hasn't she texted yet? He sends another message, then another. Within 2 days, the beautiful moment has turned into anxiety. What changed? Not necessarily her feelings, his interpretation changed. He converted a moment into a verdict, and once he did that, every small behavior became emotionally loaded. This is where ego protection can enter the picture. When uncertainty threatens our self-image, we often try to regain control. A man may become overly confident. He may withdraw dramatically to see whether she chases him. He may deliberately make her jealous, or he may bombard her with reassurance-seeking questions. All of those behaviors attempt to eliminate uncertainty. But emotional intimacy doesn't work that way. You cannot interrogate someone into certainty. You cannot manipulate someone into genuine affection. And you cannot create emotional safety by constantly testing the other person. There is another subtle signal many men misunderstand. After a kiss, she may become quieter. That does not automatically mean rejection. Some people become quiet when they experience vulnerability. Why? Because intimacy temporarily lowers psychological defenses. A person who normally feels completely composed can suddenly become aware that another human being has emotional access to them. That can feel wonderful. It can also feel frightening. Especially for someone with an avoidant attachment pattern, increased closeness can activate a desire to regain emotional distance. This is why mature men don't immediately panic. They observe. Does she return to conversation naturally? Does she continue showing interest? Does she initiate contact? Does she make space for you? Does she respect your boundaries while allowing you into her world? Those patterns tell you much more than the kiss itself. And here's another truth. The strongest kiss is not necessarily the most intense kiss. Intensity and intimacy are different things. Intensity can be created by novelty, chemistry, excitement, or even uncertainty. Intimacy develops through emotional safety. A woman may experience intense chemistry with someone and still decide that person isn't right for her. She may experience a quieter connection with another man and gradually become deeply attached because she feels understood, respected, and emotionally safe. That's why mature attraction often becomes less theatrical. There is less need for games, less need for proving, less need to create emotional chaos, and more attention to consistency. You should also pay attention to reciprocity. Does she participate naturally? Does she move closer by choice? Does she appear comfortable? Does she communicate what she likes and dislikes? Does she respect your signals as much as you respect hers? Those questions matter because genuine attraction is not something one person extracts from another. It is something two people discover together, and that leads to one of the most important psychological truths of all. A confident man does not measure his worth by a woman's reaction. He measures the quality of the connection by whether both people are free to participate. That mindset protects you from obsession. It also makes you more attractive because you aren't placing the entire emotional weight of your self-esteem on her response. Think about the difference. One man kisses a woman and immediately thinks, please let her like me. Another thinks, I like her, and I'm going to stay present enough to discover whether this is mutual. The second man is emotionally freer, and emotional freedom changes behavior. He doesn't rush, he doesn't manipulate, he doesn't chase reassurance, he doesn't treat silence as catastrophe, he lets reality reveal itself. That is what mature confidence actually looks like. If you want to approach kissing and attraction with more emotional intelligence, start with the first principle. Step 1. Slow down enough to notice reciprocity. Don't focus exclusively on what you want to do. Pay attention to what she is communicating. Is she comfortable? Is she participating willingly? Does she naturally move closer? Does she respond positively when you slow down? The psychology is simple. Reciprocity creates psychological safety. When both people contribute voluntarily, neither person feels like they are being dragged through an emotional experience. The most common mistake is assuming silence means permission. It doesn't. If you aren't sure, communicate. A mature man doesn't lose confidence because he checks that the moment feels mutual. He demonstrates confidence by respecting another person's autonomy. Step 2. Stop trying to perform. You don't need to turn a kiss into a demonstration of masculinity. You don't need complicated movements. You don't need to imitate something you saw online. Be present. Notice her response. Adjust naturally. Why does this work psychologically? Because attention is the foundation of connection. When your mind is busy asking, am I doing this perfectly? You are no longer fully experiencing the person in front of you. You become self-conscious, and self-consciousness creates tension. The common mistake is becoming obsessed with technique. If you're mentally grading yourself while kissing someone, you've already left the moment. Step 3. Respect the pace of emotional intimacy. Physical closeness can happen faster than emotional trust. That is normal, but don't assume the emotional relationship has automatically caught up. A kiss can open a door. It doesn't tell you what's inside the entire house. Give the relationship room to develop. Psychologically, this reduces pressure. When someone feels that every affectionate moment will immediately be converted into expectations, they may become guarded. The common mistake is immediately asking, so what are we now? Sometimes that conversation is necessary, but timing matters. If you're seeking clarity, ask calmly when the relationship has enough substance to support an honest conversation. Step 4. Watch what happens afterward. This is one of the most valuable habits you can develop. Don't obsess over every minute. Look for consistent behavior. Does she contact you? Does she make plans? Does she continue conversations? Does she show curiosity about your life? Does she become more comfortable around you? Does she respect your boundaries? Why does this matter? Because repeated behavior is usually more informative than isolated emotional moments. The common mistake is becoming a detective. You don't need to decode every emoji. You don't need to count exactly how many hours it took her to respond. Patterns matter more than individual data points. Step 5. Don't punish distance. Suppose she becomes quieter after an intimate moment. Your first instinct might be to withdraw dramatically. You think, fine, I'll show her I don't care. But that's not emotional strength. That's often wounded pride wearing a confident costume. Instead, give appropriate space while maintaining your dignity. If communication is needed, communicate directly. If she needs time, allow it. The psychology here involves reducing threat. When people feel pressured to immediately explain every emotion, their defenses can rise. The common mistake is using silence as manipulation. Healthy space says, I'm comfortable giving you room. Manipulative silence says, I'm withholding myself until you behave the way I want. Those are completely different. Step 6, don't use kissing to secure validation. This may be the hardest lesson. If you're lonely, a kiss can feel like proof that you're still desirable. If you've recently experienced rejection, it can feel like emotional redemption. But your value cannot safely depend on another person's romantic response. Why? Because then every positive interaction becomes addictive and every negative interaction becomes devastating. You start chasing the next reassurance. The common mistake is confusing attraction with self-worth. You are allowed to enjoy being desired. You are not required to depend on it. Step 7. Communicate your preferences without turning them into demands. If something feels good, you can express it. If something doesn't feel comfortable, you can say so. If you're uncertain, you can ask. This is where mature intimacy becomes different from performance. Two adults don't need to read each other's minds, they can communicate. The psychology is powerful because communication reduces ambiguity. And reduced ambiguity gives both people more freedom to relax. The common mistake is believing that communication destroys chemistry. Healthy communication often protects chemistry because both people know their boundaries are respected. Step 8. Understand the difference between attraction and compatibility. She can be attracted to you and still not be compatible with you. You can have chemistry and still want completely different relationships. You can enjoy kissing someone and discover that your values don't align. This isn't failure, it's information. The common mistake is treating chemistry as evidence that everything else must work. It doesn't. Attraction answers one question: do I feel drawn toward this person? Compatibility asks much bigger questions. Can we communicate? Do we respect each other? Do our expectations fit? Do we feel emotionally safe? Can we handle disagreement? Do our lives actually work together? That's where mature relationships are built. Step 9. Let her reveal herself voluntarily. You don't need to interrogate her emotions. Give her opportunities to demonstrate interest. Make a plan. See whether she participates. Share something meaningful. Notice whether she opens up. Express affection. See whether affection is reciprocated. The psychology behind this is simple. Voluntary behavior is more informative than behavior produced by pressure. The common mistake is trying to force certainty. You don't need to force someone to reveal how they feel. Give the relationship enough space for her behavior to become visible. And finally, step 10, protect the dignity of both people. This is the foundation beneath everything else. You are not trying to conquer her. She is not trying to prove herself to you. You're two adults exploring whether closeness feels right. That perspective changes everything. You become calmer, you listen better, you stop treating attraction like a competition, and you become much better at recognizing the difference between genuine connection and wishful thinking. Now let's talk about the part most men struggle with: the waiting, the uncertainty, the silence after a meaningful moment, the temptation to replay everything. You lie in bed and remember the kiss. Then your brain starts asking questions. Did she really like it? Why hasn't she texted? Should I message her? Should I wait? Was she nervous? Did I move too quickly? Does she want me? And suddenly, one beautiful moment has become a psychological courtroom where you're both the prosecutor and the defendant. Stop. Take a breath. You don't need to solve the entire relationship tonight. This is where emotional maturity becomes your greatest advantage. You have to understand something about anxiety. Anxiety demands immediate certainty. Healthy intimacy often requires time. Those two things naturally conflict. Your anxious mind wants an answer now. Reality may need another week of behavior before the answer becomes obvious. And this is why patience is not passivity. Patience is allowing information to arrive without manufacturing conclusions. Think about the difference. Impatience says, I need to know what she feels. Patience says, I care about what she feels and I'll allow her behavior to show me. That second position is powerful. It doesn't mean you become cold. It doesn't mean you stop communicating. It doesn't mean you play games. It means you stop trying to control the outcome. There is another reframe I want you to remember. Don't ask, how do I make her feel more attracted to me? Ask, does this connection naturally create attraction between us? That question moves you from manipulation to observation, from performance to presence, from chasing to choosing. And older men especially need to remember this. You don't need to compete with younger men by acting younger. You don't need to manufacture excitement. You don't need to prove that you still have something to offer. Your greatest advantage can be your ability to remain grounded. You've lived long enough to understand that not every exciting moment becomes a lasting relationship. You've probably learned that chemistry can be real without being permanent. You've probably learned that someone's attention can feel intoxicating without necessarily meaning commitment. And if you've learned those lessons, use them. Don't become cynical. Become discerning. There's a difference. Cynicism says, women can't be trusted. Discernment says, I'll watch what someone consistently does before I give them emotional power. Cynicism closes the heart. Discernment protects it. You can remain open without becoming naive. You can enjoy attraction without becoming obsessed. You can kiss someone without immediately needing to know where the relationship will end. And you can walk away from an unhealthy connection without turning the person into an enemy. That's real emotional strength. One of the biggest mistakes men make as they get older is believing they have less time, so they must rush. But rushing doesn't create compatibility. It only hides incompatibility temporarily. If you feel like you have to secure someone immediately because another opportunity might never come, you're making decisions from scarcity. And scarcity makes people tolerate things they normally wouldn't. So slow down. Not because you don't care, because you care enough to see clearly. If she likes you, you don't have to force every signal. If she wants to know you, she will create opportunities for that connection to continue. If she is uncertain, you don't have to punish her for it. And if she ultimately decides that the connection isn't right, that doesn't make the beautiful moments fake. It simply means a moment was a moment. You can appreciate it without turning it into a promise. The mature man doesn't chase certainty from someone who is still uncertain. He watches, he communicates, he respects, he chooses, and most importantly, he remains himself throughout the process. Because the goal isn't to become the perfect man who can guarantee a woman's attraction. That man doesn't exist. The goal is to become emotionally intelligent enough to recognize mutual attraction when it appears, and emotionally strong enough to accept reality when it doesn't. So the next time you kiss a woman, don't immediately ask yourself whether you've won her. Ask something much more meaningful. Did we both feel comfortable? Was there mutual interest? Did the connection continue afterward? Did she choose closeness as naturally as I did? Those questions will tell you more than trying to decode one facial expression ever could. And remember this, a kiss can create a memory, but consistency creates trust. Chemistry can open the door, but emotional safety determines whether two people want to keep walking through it. And attraction can begin in seconds. Real connection is revealed over time. So don't rush the answer. Let her behavior speak. Let your behavior speak. And let reality, not fantasy, tell you what this relationship actually is. If this perspective helped you understand attraction with more maturity, subscribe for more psychology-based relationship insights, and leave a comment telling me this. What do you think matters more after a kiss, chemistry, emotional safety, or consistency? Your answer might help another man see his situation more clearly. And remember, the strongest man in the room isn't the one who can make someone want him. It's the man who can remain grounded enough to know when the desire is genuinely mutual.